You know, one thing I told myself when I started working with kids again was that I would almost never do a story time about kids. But then I started meeting a lot of these kids, and I was like, I need to warn people about kids like this. And I need to warn y'all about how bad it's getting out here with these children, their behavior, their lack of self awareness, and everything in between. So let's roll that intro. Let's keep the ball rolling, telling it these teacher stories, because Jesus Christ, when you work with kids, there are some students that you will never forget. Okay. This girl right here is a girl that I will never forget. We're going to name her Stacy. We briefly mentioned her and how basically I had to kick her out the day of the show. Now, a lot of you guys are probably like, girl, you did what? Like, you kicked the kid out like the same day as the showcase, and did. And I do it again and again and again. Always the kids that do the most that end up being my favorites. But I actually really like this kid, and I think she's going places and she's going far. However, she lacks discipline, self-awareness, and self-control. And she's also a bully. It's so funny because I've told a similar story on my Instagram about another student at that school. If you guys have been watching my vlogs, y'all know about some of the students I had this year that I really liked, but they were bad as shit. One of the worst kids I really liked, but she was a really big bully. And it's like, damn, what's up with me and liking the kids that be treating the other kids the worst? But with me, they don't act like that. That's part of the problem here. A lot of these situations are happening because a lot of the schools and programs are severely understaffed, right? In a lot of situations, you're supposed to have 2 or 3 adults in there with you to mitigate behaviors and prevent certain things from happening. But when you don't, certain behaviors get escalated. Things that could have been really small or minute end up being huge things because there was no one there to support you and have an extra set of eyes and hands, right? So with this child, I really do hope she's doing well. I do hope I cross paths with her again one day, because she was super talented and she was a very smart girl. I don't play that shit, and I'll never play that shit. And I don't care if I like you, you're going to be held to the same standard as any child, right? We're going to name this student Stacy. We're going to be talking about a job that I already referenced in a story time. I'll link it down below. I did say the name of the company in there, but I'm not going to say it here. This particular program deals with bridging the gap between STEM and dance and getting young Black and brown girls to be interested in STEM careers, because they are the smallest group of people that are represented in that field. Love the mission as a woman in STEM, as an influencer, and a woman in dance with a dance nonprofit, which shameless promo, shameless plug. We finally found a space for LakayRo Dance Company season 2026. We are currently raising funds to secure the space and make sure that the kids have a nice, safe, consistent season. If you guys would like to donate, everything is going to be here in the lovely QR code. All the proceeds from the classes will go directly to securing the space. As a woman in STEM and dance, I absolutely love this program and I love what it stood for. So my last year working there, I docked my pay. That's why I'm never going back, because y'all played in my fucking face. They didn't think I would notice. I'm gonna link the story time down below. I had a student, we're gonna name her Stacy. Now, immediately with Stacy, I could already tell she was going to be real extra, real different. And that's why I liked her, because she stood out. She was very respectful. She was very outspoken, but there was just something about her. She was one of the first kids to come up to me like, hi, what's your name? My name is Stacy. And I was like, oh, I'm Miss R. She's like, oh, okay. Like, I really love to dance and I'm so excited. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, that's nice. She left a really good first impression on me. Immediately, right? My class support, we're going to name her Jenny, because that's what I named her in my previous story, came up to me. She was like, girl, watch out for her. I said, watch out for who? She was like, Stacy. I was like, really? She was like, yeah, she had a lot of problems with the kids in the program last year. I was here last year. It was really bad. And I was like, really? She seems so sweet. As she's telling me this, we're in the back of the class and we had the kids doing an icebreaker. And the icebreaker was like, what's your name and what's a toy that you grew up with when you were a kid? All the kids are saying, oh, I played with this, I played with that. She's like, oh,
My mom didn't let me play with toys. I was watching documentaries and
da 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 da. Like, she said something along those lines. When I'm telling you, everybody just looked at her like, my co-teacher was just like, okay, all right, girl. Like, everybody was just kind of looking at her like, at that point, she kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Like, she rubbed a lot of the students the wrong way. But at the same time, I genuinely believe that, no, I think that if that's how she is, if that's her answer, that's how she grew up. What y'all gonna do, beat her up because she didn't play with toys? But the thing is, it's the way she said it. She made it seem like she was better than all the other kids because she wasn't playing with toys as a kid. which I find that hard to believe. Like, sis, I'm very sure you were out here playing with toys, girl, bye. And that's what the other kids were saying too. They was like, who does she think she is? Da, da, da. And I'm like, listen, it is what it is. I was just saying that, like, this is mad messy. From that point on, there was some people that you gravitated towards her, but there was a majority of those students that genuinely did not. And it started causing friction when it came time to create choreography. So the way this program worked, there is a STEM and a dance portion. I taught the dance, and my co-teacher, Miss Leslie, did STEM. The objective is to get the kids in teams, and then they do their own choreography for a showcase. You have 3 weeks to put together an entire show with all the other cohorts and sites. There's 2 sites and then 8 cohorts total. It's a lot going on in such a short amount of time, but we figured it out. It's a good show every year. So Stacy ends up in a group. She does it with some of her friends. I remember her being close friends with these kids. I don't know if the kids that she picked to be in her group or she chose to work with were just floating around and wanted to be in that group. It was such an awkward and uncomfortable situation because those kids were miserable in that group. They did not contribute, they did not speak, they looked horrible. And while everyone was out there finishing their dances in 3, max 4 days, these people were stuck. These kids were stuck on the first like 16 counts. And every single time I asked them, like, hey, do you need help? What do you have? Why don't y'all have more? What can I, how can I help you guys? They wouldn't even answer. It was Stacy that was answering all the time for them. And it got to a point where I was like, yo, what is actually going on? Prior to that, there were incidences with my co-teacher and other students in which I had to tell her mom. Got to the point where I had to tell her dad. There's a situation where she rolled her eyes and cursed at my co-teacher. I didn't tell y'all all those details because it was just so many other things that was going on. But in a general sense, there were so many situations in which she would act a certain way to me and she would act a certain way to her. With me, she was very respectful, very nice, very cutesy, very demure. Anytime my co-teacher was around and I wasn't around, she was very nasty to her. And my co-teacher started getting upset. So Leslie was like, yo, like, I'm sick and tired of her. Like, I'm not dealing with her. You gonna have to deal with her. I'm not directly dealing with this little girl. She's mad rude. And I used to sit there and be like, you're being extra. But eventually I started kind of like watching her from a distance. I would peek my head through the door. Where we would have dance, it was a conference room. There was a glass conference room door. So I would stand there, make sure she didn't see me. And that's when I would catch her. So here's the thing, right? I hate to say the child was manipulative, but I will say she knew exactly what she was doing. Anytime I was there, she knew to put on a really good act. So a lot of the times when I was getting complaints about her, I was like, I really don't see what you guys are talking about. Like, I don't get it. It wasn't until I hid and tried to get the information and see her in action that I was like, what is actually going on? It's the same thing that Ferry did. Like, Ferry would do the same thing, but with Miss Leslie. Like, I was seeing the nonsense, right? But Miss Leslie was like, no, she's sweet, da, 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 da. But, I mean, at the same time, I can't even give Miss Leslie that type of, like, leeway because you saw the kids screaming and running and crying, and that was a big thing. But with this situation, like, she did a very class act in front of adults, but she was not good to the students. She was not nice to her peers at all. And it caused so much of a problem. Like, kids like that thrive off the fact that they're intelligent, right? That they're good kids on paper. But outside of that, no. And I've met kids like that. I've met a lot of kids like that. It's like they're good with adults. They respect authority. But amongst their peers, and I think those types of kids are the most dangerous because you'll never know. Because it's like, you're not going to see it unless you really pay attention or, you do what I did and you hid. She would sit there. She'd be cussing at the other kids. She would be rude. Like,
That's not how you do it. You look dumb.
like, rude. And I'm like, oh my God. So like I said, I addressed this with her mom. I addressed this with her dad. I addressed this with my boss. I addressed it with so many different people. If you remember the story time about this company, there was a time in which my boss's boss was not here. This is a 3-week program. My boss thought it made sense to go on vacation the second week of the program. Okay. We were told that if there were children that should be removed for the program, if there were serious behavioral issues or students that may need to be taken out of the program, we would have to wait for her approval, talk to her about it. Meanwhile, she wasn't here. By the time she came back, it's the last week. The performance is at the end of the week. It doesn't even fucking matter. It was just insane because the way this shit ended, I was so annoyed because I did my due diligence. I told my boss, me and my coworker tried to work on it together. I called her mom. I physically saw her mom. I physically saw the dad. I spoke about her behavior to all parties involved and nothing was done. I personally feel like she's a good kid. She just does not work well with others. She's just nasty, okay? It got to a point where a lot of the kids started complaining about her, right? It would tell me and my co-teacher, Miss Leslie, like, yo,
Stacy said that we can't dance. Stacy said she danced better than us. Stacy said our dance looks stupid. Stacy said her group is better than our group.
and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? At first, I thought that they just didn't like Stacy because some of them didn't, but some of the people that were saying that Stacy was saying these things were people that I knew to be Stacy's friend. How are you going around telling people all of this and you're like, that's supposed to be your friends or whatever, right?
Now, here's the kicker with this shit. And I need you guys to remember this for the end of the story because it's going to come back up. I had some of the most talented kids ever in this group. Like, I don't know how they put all these kids together, but these kids were advanced. I'm talking about some of these kids dance for the Brooklyn Nets kids dance team, okay, in the NBA. Some of these kids were in ballet schools. I had gymnasts. I had kids on majorette teams. I had cheerleaders. Like, when I'm telling you these kids was talented, and a lot of them have been dancing since they were like babies. So like, it was so much easier for me to deal with that because like these kids already knew how to choreograph. They knew how to dance. They knew how to move their bodies. And, you know, unfortunately, like, I didn't have all that experience, but she was also a really good dancer. Would I say she was better than anybody? No, but that's not the point. It's not the point. It's not a dance competition or anything like that. It was so bizarre. Like when the kids were telling me like, yeah, like she said this, she said that. I'm like, where does she think that? Like, that's crazy. And she's saying it to the kids that she, you know, like she's cool with. I don't know, bro.
And that's when it dawned on me. And it kind of makes me upset for myself. I feel ashamed that I didn't notice it sooner. But that's when I looked and I'm like, that's why these kids can't get their shit done. That's why their dance can't get done. It's Stacy. I'm thinking it's them goofing around. It was Stacy. Now, for context, right? It's not like I just had like 8 to 10 kids. I had like 30 plus kids. My highest count was like 35-ish. By the time we had to showcase, it was 27. So I had a good amount of kids. There was 3 of us there. We would rotate around. And every single time I asked these kids, they said they were good. But obviously they weren't. They weren't talking. They weren't engaging. They weren't adding to anything because they were scared and they didn't want to hear anything from Stacy. And I feel ashamed that I did not see it, especially as a dance teacher or educator, that she was basically hogging the entire thing. The only reason I noticed was because Miss Leslie had a whole situation in which she crashed out on those same kids because they deleted their project by accident because Stacy was hogging the computer. There was one day where we're like, listen, we got to get this shit done. If it doesn't get done today, then we're going to be scatterbrained all next week. We don't have time for it. So I think it was like Thursday or Friday. And we were like, listen, you're not going to dance until you finish this. While they were sitting here trying to finish, allegedly, Stacy goes and deletes the entire thing. According to Miss Leslie claims Stacy did that shit on purpose. According to the kids, they don't even know because they weren't even allowed to touch the computer. It was a mess, okay? For their module, they had to create AI green screen type of effects to go behind their performance for the show, right? So honestly, all they had to do was edit a few graphics together in like CapCut, iMovie, etc., and that was it. But for whatever reason, they couldn't settle on theme. They couldn't settle on the images they wanted to use. They couldn't settle on the colors. It was so bad, so irritating. Okay.
And this also goes into what I was talking about in the original story, talking about this company. They just poorly planned everything, right? These kids were supposed to be doing an AI module. Meanwhile, more than half of them were not even old enough to use AI. I had a bunch of, I forgot how old you got to be to use AI. I think it's like 13. A lot of them were just 12. So they couldn't use it. So we just pivoted and we just made them make graphics, and just, you know, put like some stuff together for the background. Like, shit was, we didn't have internet. Oh man. So we couldn't even use like a lot of the online video editors. It was really tough. I'm not going to hold you, like, so I will say part of the reason I thought they were taking so long was because of all the technical difficulties and, you know, the restrictions that they had, but nope.
Somehow, allegedly, Stacy ends up deleting it, right? The funny part about this is I'm saying allegedly because according to Miss Leslie in the group, they claim that Stacy did it on purpose. I personally think maybe it was an actual accident because Stacy never knew what the fuck she was doing. And I don't know why y'all let her do this shit because she really didn't know what she was doing. She kept trying to download stuff. She kept trying to do whatever. And that's what was taking a lot of the time. Not only was she hogging the computer, but she genuinely didn't know what she was doing. And since she didn't know what she was doing, it was fucking everything up and delaying everything and making everything longer than it needed to be. And she was one of those kids that didn't like asking for help. She wanted to make it seem like she was doing everything herself because she was super intelligent. So it was just holding everybody back. The whole thing was just crazy. Fast forward, I got fed up at this point. I got annoyed. I got fed up and I got so irritated by having to talk to her mom and other people. Like, it was so horrible. I did that story time about this company before, right? We'll link it down below. I talked about a parent in which everybody was scared of. Her mom. That was her mom, okay? Everybody was afraid of this parent. Nobody wanted to engage with this parent because of her attitude and the way she was. I was the only one that directly engaged with this parent because everybody else was on some, yeah, nah. Like, literally, she came to the open house unloading shit. Like,
oh, I don't know if I trust my kids with y'all. My kid is this, my kid is that, and I don't want her doing all the work. I don't want her to.
Keep that in mind. Stacy was like, oh yeah, like I can't wait to dance. And she's the one taking over the group and she's the one taking the laptop and I want y'all to keep all this in mind. This comes into play. I end up dismantling the group. I was like, y'all not doing this shit no more. Their group, Poison, they were dancing to Belle Biv DeVoe's Poison. The song was inappropriate. So my boss said they got to change the song. There was loads of other inappropriate songs, but that's another story for another time, right? But they said they had to change it. I told Stacy and the other kids, they said they didn't want to change it. And then obviously they had other conflicts. I said, fuck it, dismantle. I put all these kids in different groups in which they were happier and performed better. They became completely different kids once I moved them. And then obviously there was Stacy. Not one group wanted Stacy because everyone knew she's rude. She takes everything over. She doesn't collaborate. And she also has a different type of dance style. It's not that she can't dance. She can dance very well. She just has a different type of dance style. The way she dances, it would not have fit in any other group with the exception of Majorette. And I had two Majorette groups. One of my Majorette groups was Powerpuff Girls. The other Majorette group was a work group. Like, you know, like we can't do work, 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 work. That song. And the only thing she would have fit into was the work thing. If I would have put her in the Powerpuff Girls situation, there was already three of them. The only option would be to make her Mojo Jojo or one of the other villains. But then it's like, I don't want people to sit there and be like, oh, well, you're vilifying her. She's already always in trouble. Now you're going to make her the villain. I was like, I don't have time for that. She ended up having to audition. It was this whole thing, right? It was like 2 or 3 of them that wanted to be in that group. That group said, yeah, nah, we don't need that many people. We only need one of y'all. They had to audition to be part of the group. Oh, man. It was messy. It was actually crazy. I let the kids have full autonomy. I'm happy with how it turned out with the exception of that. I feel like I could have handled that better, but let me tell y'all what happened, right? So Stacy ends up winning the audition. They put her in the group, but then there was another kid that ended up crying because she really wanted to be in that group. We're going to call her Hillary. Hillary, sweet girl, smart girl, just talk too damn much. It could be quiet and she the only one talking. We in the bathroom, she the only one talking. We eating, she the only one talking. Annoying as fuck, but very nice girl. Very sweet girl. I don't know what issues Stacy had with Hillary, but all day they was fighting. All day. Hillary would be in tears almost every other day because of Stacy.
All right, now that I'm watching all this back and I'm recounting everything, I think that Stacy had like a severe insecurity issue, like where she vied for adult and peer validation, but she went about it the wrong way. Her issue with Hillary was mainly that Hillary was another insanely intelligent kid. Like, both of them would go back and forth debating on different facts of life, science, education. It was so interesting. Like, it was like watching two Albert Einstein, Jimmy Neutron type kids just going back and forth. Like, they were just insanely intelligent. And Hillary, she didn't care for attention. She was very shy, but she was really intelligent. And like I said, she was always talking. But I think that Stacy didn't like the fact that she would take over. I think that Stacy didn't like the fact that there was another really smart kid in the room. And, you know, people liked Hillary. You know, she was a little like, she was a little not outcasted, but she was a little weird. But like, no, you know, people liked her for the most part. But yeah, Stacy didn't understand why they liked her, but they didn't like her, if that made sense. She didn't understand why they liked Hillary, but they didn't like her. And they were the same type of smart, nerdy type of kid. So interesting. Now that I actually look back at it. So I think that that's what the problem really was when it came to the Hillary thing.
It even got to the point where Hillary's mom, didn't Hillary's mom take her out? No, that's a lie. Hillary's mom was going to take her out. But I remember Hillary's mom had to call Stacy's mom. Your daughter keeps bullying my daughter. Mind you, Hillary is older. Stacy, and apparently outside of the program, they go to the same school. So now niggas is coming at my neck like, oh, why do you have them in the same group if they don't like each other? Well, babes, in the real world, you have to work with people you don't like. That's why I have them in the same group. Also, they chose to be in the same group from the beginning. Unfortunately, the way the cookie crumbled, because I had to dismantle the group later, they ended up in the same group because they both have very distinct and different dance styles, and nobody wants your daughters. Like, unfortunately, when it came to Hillary, a lot of people were saying she can't dance. I'm sorry, she wasn't the best dancer. She was very good at STEM, though. And that's how it was with a lot of these kids. Not all these kids were really good at both. A lot of these kids could dance really well, but they weren't good with the STEM part. They were really good at the STEM part, but they couldn't dance. Hillary was one of those kids. She was not the best dancer, but she can hang. I feel like she can hang. She can be in the back. She can mark some stuff. She wasn't that bad. But they really didn't want Hillary. But a lot of the groups were willing to take Hillary so long as they were able to teach her. But that's the problem. We didn't have that much time. We had like maybe 4 or 5 days left. So she had to be able to pick up the easiest choreo. And the easiest choreography was the majorette one. So that whole situation happens. Hillary, Stacy, and there was another girl that were battling out. No, I think it was just Hillary and Stacy. Hillary and Stacy were battling it out to be part of this group. And they ended up picking Stacy. Hillary starts crying. They feel bad. They take Hillary. Everybody's happy. So now a group of 3 ends up being a group of 5. I'm like, you know what? That's great. Worked out. I ain't had to step in. Everybody figured everything out on their own. Like, I thought that this was the perfect idea. But of course, I already knew that something was going to happen because this child has had so much conflict. I told those 3 girls that were originally in that group, let me know immediately once she starts giving problems, doing anything that she shouldn't be doing, saying anything that she shouldn't be doing, because she is not the captain of this ship. And unfortunately, her original group was dismantled because of her behavior. And literally, she's done after this. If she can't be with y'all, then she can't be with nobody because there's nowhere for her to go. They said, I bet we'll tell you, coach. Like, no problem. Yo, I want to tell you, I was smooth sailing after this. Like I said, I'm helping other cohorts. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Like, we was having a grand old time. It was so great until the day of the show. Now, fast forward. Day of the show. Better yet, fast forward, right? We had dress rehearsal. That entire situation was a shit show. My job did not book the adequate amount of time that we needed in order to do full dress rehearsals. And that's what led to this situation. It pisses me off because realistically, if they booked enough time, this whole thing would have never happened. So when you have a performance, you're supposed to have dress rehearsals. This is basically exactly how the show is going to run. Lights, costumes, all of that are supposed to be worn and everything. It's basically literally a full run of the show. Unfortunately, some way, somehow, they let the other site go first. I was working in Brooklyn, but there's also a Harlem site. They let Harlem go first. They spent 7 to 8 minutes on each piece, critiquing, moving, choreographing, practicing. By the time it got to Brooklyn, we were only allowed to do our piece one time, no comments, no nothing. Swear to God, okay? That group ends up going, right? The work group ends up getting on stage. I'm going to hold you, of all the groups, I felt like they looked good. But at the same time, I was so flustered and so irritated at the fact that I wasn't allowed to properly stage my girls that maybe they looked worse and I just didn't remember. All I know is I go out with those kids at my last group and everybody's upset. Everybody's mad. Stacy is sitting there like, yo,
We need to do better. Could have did so much better. It looked messy. We looked sloppy. It looked bad.
and I'm like, yeah, I think y'all looked good.
No, like we looked a mess.
I'm like, all right, whatever, suit yourself. You the one on stage, not me. Like, it is what it is. I didn't think it was going to turn into all of this, okay? Fast forward, about an hour later, 2 of the kids, one girl from that group and another girl from another group, they're like, yo, Miss R, look. And I'm like, what is this? They're like, yo, they're going off in the group chat right now. All of a sudden, a girl comes running and she's banging on the door and she's like, yo, let me in. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And she's like, yo,
Listen, I'm gonna whoop her ass. Like, she doing all this shit with my sister. She's talking shit to my sister. I'm going to whoop her ass. Like, y'all better get her.
and I'm like, yo, what is going on? So, long story short, there was a girl, I'm gonna call her Amina, sweetest child, one of my favorites because she didn't bother anyone. She didn't raise her voice. She wasn't rude. She wasn't disrespectful. I never had to call her name. She was probably the last child's name that I learned because she did not bother anybody. She was to herself. She did not get in the way. She wasn't even outspoken. She was very chill. And that's when I realized, okay, I put two and two together with the context and all that, that the girl that was banging on the door was Amina's sister. And she was taking up for her sister because apparently Stacy went in the dance group chat talking shit, saying that they look a mess and they need to get it together. Okay, she was saying that she don't like the way they look. They need to get it together. They need to keep practicing. They need to practice at home. Now you guys were like, well, Yvana, what's wrong with that? It's the way she was saying it. Well, I'm telling you, nasty. Like, I'm reading the text messages and all I see is, yo, we look the mess. We need to do better. Y'all need to practice. And Amina's like, it's cool. Like, we're going to work on it. We got a little bit of time until the show, whatever. And she's like, no, like, y'all are ridiculous. And you better watch your mouth when you talking to me. That shit was unprovoked as fuck. I looked at the entire conversation. Like, I scrolled up. I'm like, why is she saying that? Oh, you better watch your mouth when you're talking to me. You're going to have some problems if you keep talking to me like that. Just rude to Amina, my sweet little baby, my sweet little Amina that don't talk to nobody, that don't say nothing to nobody. Like, you're mad over what though? At this point, the show is tomorrow. This whole situation is getting so big and ridiculous. Now Amina's crying. Her sisters wants to beat up Stacy. Stacy's like,
oh, I didn't do anything. I don't know why everybody's saying that I did something.
and I'm just like, bro, I called Stacy. I said, explain yourself. I was like, I'm not about to rehash anything, but I'm tired. I've done everything that I could. But still, you have a problem all the time, every day. This is insanity. What is the problem? Like, I need you. Like, I got so mad. Like, it took everything inside me not to, like, literally crash out on this kid. I got so mad. Like, the fact that I had to talk to your mom and your dad numerous times, the behavior didn't change. I told my boss, they talked to you, nothing changed. Like,
I forgot to mention the parents' responses. Every single time I spoke to them, they made it seem like they were going to do something. She was going to get beat. They were going to take her phone away, take her privileges away. I don't know if they actually did it. Whether they did it or did not, the behavior didn't change. Okay? Like, I remember when I spoke to the dad, like, he looked at her like, you need to learn how to work in a group. You can't be talking to people like that. You can't be acting like that. And then the mom was just like, you know, I already told you about your attitude and your behavior. And you know, you can't act like that. And literally she came back doing the same shit. She might have been good for like one day, half a day, and then she'll be right back to the same shit. So
I'm tired. I put you with the least problematic group. The group that you were least likely to have any issues with, and you still have issues with them. Now I have a crying kid whose name I barely know because I never have to call it. And you're the common denominator. You're the problem. So help me help you. She's just sitting there silent.
I don't think I did anything. Like, I didn't do anything. Like,
I saw the messages.
well, like, I wasn't, like, I was just saying, like, we need to practice. Like, I wasn't really saying anything. Like, you know, it wasn't even like that.
How was it like then, Stacy? Because you in there talk about something, don't talk, like, you better watch how you talk to me. We gonna have some problems. That's what you call a threat, low key. Like, you're antagonizing the situation and you like, what do you mean? Like, what is gonna happen if they keep talking to you like that? She wasn't even saying anything to you. You're being rude, very nasty. At the end of the day, I think you guys looked good. And even if you didn't, you'll work on it because the show is tomorrow. And whatever it is, it is. You just came to this group, you're causing problems. Like, come on. So I looked at her, I said, listen, fix it before I do because you're not going to like the fix. Not going to like it. I guarantee you're not going to like it. So go figure it out. You better go apologize. You better figure this shit out. She goes, she apologizes. I'm thinking everything is fine. I'm thinking everything is Gucci. An hour later, the girl sister come back to me and she's like,
Listen, I'm gonna whoop her ass. If you or somebody else don't handle this, I'm gonna whoop her ass. She needs to stop talking to my sister like that. And I don't understand who she thinks she is. Every year she come here, it's a problem.
like, she was just like, listen, Amina's sister is just like, listen, you already know I don't do too much talking. She don't do too much talking. That's because at the end of the day, like, we bang for real. At the end of the day, like, she's just gonna get slapped and that's it. And the thing is with this other girl, Amina's sister, also really quiet, very nice, very good kid. I was working with her. She was part of another cohort that I was actively helping. So I ain't gonna hold you. When she was saying that, I believed her. It's always the quiet ones. They always say it's always the quiet ones you gotta watch out for. Those two, yeah, quiet as hell. But I believe that they really probably would have slapped the shit out of Stacy. I believe they probably would have jumped her after the program. Even if that were not the case, the fact that she was causing problems with kids that don't do anything is crazy. According to the kids, she was talking extra shit in the chat. I did see the chat. She was talking extra shit. So I got fed up. I went to my boss. I told her what was going on. And then I went to my boss's boss and I said, I'm cutting her. There's no and, ifs, or buts. And my boss's boss was like, what? I was like, yeah. He's like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, the show's tomorrow. I said, I'm sick of this. I'm very tired. I was sick of this. I'm tired. I've done everything. I started explaining it to her because she wasn't here for a week. From what I understand, they know that this girl's a problem every year. So I was like, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. It is what it is. What you gonna do, fire me because I kicked her out the show? I don't give a fuck. So I went and I cut her. I said, listen, you're no longer in the show. Everybody just sat there, was like, yeah, we're not doing this. You're a bully. Like, this is crazy. Practically bullied the co-teacher. I understand she's annoying. You being rude and disrespectful to her every single time that she said something to you was extremely problematic. You're rude and disrespectful to our boss as well. You're rude and disrespectful to your peers. You're not a good leader. You don't know how to collaborate. You don't know how to take criticism. Like, this shit was insanity. So I cut her. I told my boss, they were like, okay, we'll talk to the parents, da, 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 da. So I'm thinking I'm scotch-free. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm done. I don't got to see none of these people ever again. I don't have to see her or her mama or her daddy. I'm sure they're sick of me coming to them, telling them about their child. But unfortunately, I had left something at the school after dismissal. Like, I was dumb and I left my shit at the other place. Like, the place we were performing was down the street from the college. So I accidentally left my stuff there. So we were at the theater. I brought the kids back to the school. I forgot my stuff at the theater. As I'm walking back to the theater, I see my boss talking with Stacy and her mom, and I'm like, fuck! I wanted to avoid this parent interaction. So my boss is like,
Oh, yeah, here she goes. She could better explain it to you.
what is there to explain? You already know the situation. The situation is, I done told y'all about this kid. Y'all ain't give a fuck. I told you about your kid. You claim you handled it. You ain't handle shit. And the crazy part is, with how strict this lady came off, she's also a teacher. She's a professor. I was confused as how that kid turned out that way. How she was such a dick. How she had no I didn't understand that. She was rude. I genuinely didn't understand it. So she's like, oh.
I just don't understand why you're kicking Stacy out and the show's in less than 24 hours. Like, the show's tomorrow, so I don't know why you didn't tell me that this was an issue in the first place.
You don't understand why I didn't tell you her behavior was an issue in the first place. You don't understand why I didn't. Everyone is afraid to correspond with you. I've been the only one corresponding with you. And I've been telling you and your baby father about your child's behavior. Been talking to you. I talked to her father. I talked to my boss. I talked to her boss. I've talked to you numerous times. So I personally don't know what you mean in regards to why didn't I tell you. I did tell you.
Well, she's just been practicing so much. She was looking forward to this. And, it's just really disheartening. It's really disappointing that she's really not going to be in the show. Like, you guys probably should have did this before.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to take accountability for that. She should have been kicked out last week. I said, yeah, she should have been kicked out last week. However, unfortunately, due to logistical reasons, aka my boss's boss wasn't here, she decided to take the second week off from program. That's why that could not happen. She should have left last week. I already spoke to you last week about why I think she should have been removed last week because of certain things that she did, making people cry. You already had a situation where you were speaking to another parent because she was accused of bullying their child. I don't know what you mean when you're sitting here and you're telling me, why did I tell you about the kid's behavior when I've been talking to you? Don't piss me off. People just like pissing me off. When she said that shit, I was just like, you don't understand why. Like, what? I was like, yeah, nah, she should have been kicked out before. It is what it is. She will not be in the show. She's like,
wow, it just sucks because she's been looking forward to this.
mind you, this conversation was long. I'm shortening it. I remember this day, me and my coworkers were going to the bar, and that's when I found out that my pay was docked. It was that same exact day when everybody was talking about how much they made. And then when I said how much I made, they was looking at me like, how you getting paid that? You've been here for years and you're helping everyone. It was that same day. So I'm sitting here like niggas is texting me like, yo, where you at? We trying to go to the train. Like we trying to hit the bar. And I'm like, y'all hold up. I'm with Stacy and her mom. They're like, ooh, child, what's going on? I'm trying to tell them, let y'all know when I get out of here. Her mom's sitting there.
She's been looking forward to this, you know, she wanted to perform. She's been practicing every day in her room, but she did tell me she felt intimidated by the other girls because a lot of the other girls come from dance teams and dance companies and stuff. So she felt like she was behind and sometimes felt like a lot of times they would be compared.
This shit pissed me off. Did I not tell y'all this girl was going around saying she was better than everybody? She was rude and disrespectful to these kids, saying that they couldn't dance, saying that her team was better than their team. This is the girl that you're telling me was intimidated by the other girls? Oh no, mama, your kid is lying to you and she's playing you like a goddamn fiddle. I'm like, she said she was intimidated? And that's when my boss stepped in like,
No, as a matter of fact, Stacy goes around saying that she's better than the other kids. She dances better than the other kids. So we don't really see how it could be possible that Stacy feels that she is behind the other girls. In fact, she takes a lot of opportunity to tell the girls that she's better than them.
and I was so happy she said that shit. I was ready to rip my goddamn locks out. Cause are you fucking crazy? You gotta be shitting me. Like, she said what? I was like, yo. How is this girl allegedly feeling behind and she going around telling everybody that she better than them? That is crazy. I was like, yeah, nah, I don't know what she told you. I don't know what you heard, but this ain't that. I understand your frustrations. I understand this is annoying, but yeah, she ain't about to be in no show with me. I feel like I have to protect the integrity of my work and the work the kids have put in. It's not okay. Like, she should not be allowed to be part of the program, let alone perform when this is how she acts. Like, dance is a discipline. Dance is a privilege. Therefore, it's like, yeah, you can't be going around acting like that. So yeah, all that to say, she did not dance. I have not seen her since. Her mom was not happy, and I don't give a fuck. I do feel bad for those kids. One of the worst decisions I ever made was that. I should have never let her be ahead of a group, period. I didn't pick the groups. I never have. I wouldn't have put her in that group. I probably would have just... There's no other group she would have been able to join. I'm not even joking. There's probably no other way that could have been handled. Let me know if you guys were in that situation. How would you have handled it? Would you guys have pulled her? Would you guys had, kicked her out? Would you have put her in another team? Like I said, she had a very distinct dance style. I had a group of ballerinas. I had the Powerpuff Girls majorette group. I had the Work majorette group, which is the one that she joined. I had a Beyonce hip hop group. They were doing the Can You Keep Up? Lose My Breath song. I'm missing one. And I had a jazz trio. It was very technical. The girls on that team were literally gymnasts. So they were doing flips and tricks. And it was a trio. That was a true trio. Everything else could have been expanded. Like even the Powerpuff Girls, I could have added like Mojo Jojo. I could have added different things to that, but I was like, no, I'm going to leave the groups. The hip hop choreography was very difficult. I added 2 girls to that group already that were already part of Stacy's group. The ballerina group, again, that's a technical piece. It's ballet. That girl, you can't just do ballet. If you don't know ballet, you don't know ballet. That's not something you can just hop in. So literally there was no choice. It was either add her to the majorette and make her a villain or add her to where I added her, which was the Work group. It fit the best. She wouldn't be able to get the hip hop situation. She's not a ballerina. She can't learn that shit overnight. And the jazz routine was a neat trio with lots of tricks that she couldn't do. So yeah, I'd love to know, what would you guys have done? Because honestly, I don't think there was any way for me to do it. And according to those girls in the group, she wasn't causing any issues until that day. Everything was copacetic until that day. Be careful. Look for red flags with your students. If you're doing lots of partner and collaborative work, make sure everybody's actually working together and no one is hogging. Because what I see is a lot of times there are students that tend to hog the spotlight and take spotlight away from kids that do have input. And I see it all the time, whether it's my class or somebody else's class. There's kids that do have really good ideas, really good insight on certain things. However, they're intimidated, right? They're afraid to speak up because their other classmates are a little bit more outspoken than they are and a little more confident. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But make sure you monitor that to make sure that your kids are working accordingly together and everyone is heard. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure you guys support LakayRo. Check out the website for more. Make sure you guys peep the other channels. Everything you need is going to be in the QR code right here on your screen or linked down below. I hope to see you guys in a future dance class. I'm going to see y'all next time. Bye!